Hello, Essentials parents. This is Mrs. Frex, and I am coming to you today to give you our IEW weeks 22, 23, and 24 video. Hopefully you have finished week 21 at this point. You have finished your Faces of History paper, and we are looking forward to hearing their presentations via Zoom this week on Friday. If you have received that invitation from your tutor. Disappointed that we weren't able to do our normal presentation, but obviously we're doing the best we can. So I am going to go over with you Unit 9, the formal critique today, and this will carry you through the rest of your IEW writing. Let me just say that if you have any questions, feel free to email or call myself or your tutors, Sarah or Tammy. They are available on Tuesdays during our normal Essentials time, or you can call them at a different time and they'll get back with you as soon as they can. Okay, so let's go over Unit 9. Unit 9 is the formal critique. I did go in, we had sent a link for you to be able to watch the video from Mr. Poudwa, since we obviously won't be getting together to do that. And the link that we sent you is very simple to do. You actually go in with IEW, you purchase it, but you just put in the code they give you, and it's a zero charge. You actually have access to all the units, so you can watch any of them. And it's not that difficult. If you have any questions about that, please feel free to call and ask me or text me or email me, and I'm happy to help you with that. I did watch it just to make sure that it was the same, and it is, and just a little refreshment, but I would suggest doing it if you have time when you can. So anyway, all right. Formal critiques for Unit 9. So a lot of us probably had to write book reports in high school or junior high or maybe college. And that is what they are doing. I will say that I think that this is a little bit, maybe a little bit deeper thinking than some of the formats that we used in high school. And I believe that it's more organized, and I think it's a great way. And I think that's why the word critique is a better word for it than book report. And you'll see why as we go through. So let's just talk about what we're doing first, and then we'll jump into what we'll be doing each week, all right? So for formal critiques in Unit 9, what we're gonna do is we're gonna teach them to have a solid structure for a book report or a review. That's why we call it a critique. Now these could be books. They could critique a book. They could critique a song. They could critique a poem. Mr. Poudwa even recommends a movie. I don't know about you guys, but we've had a lot of extra time in the evenings to watch some things on television. Probably we don't normally watch television as much, but we've been doing that more as a family, and we've seen some pretty good things, and you could do a critique on that. You could also remember this throughout the summer. I always encourage when I tutored parents, especially since it's the end of the actual year, that you take this and apply it through the summer. If you want to have your student read some books through the summer and then write a formal critique on them, I think that's a great idea. The second thing that we want to do is we want to develop a critique vocabulary using different words that analyze literature, and I'm going to show you where you can find some of those in your SRP. It's a great thesaurus for that. And then the way we're going to do that is we're going to develop a 5-paragraph format. And the beautiful part about it, 3 of those paragraphs you did back in Unit 3 with IEW using the story sequence chart. And so we're actually just reviewing. A lot of this is just review. So we're going to take a look at that, and then we're going to add the introduction and conclusion to our story sequence chart, and you have your formal critique. All right? So let's look specifically at what your critique is going to look like. And then I'm going to break it down for you in week 22, 23, what that would look like at home. All right? So your critique is going to begin It is 5 paragraphs. Again, we just finished our Faces of History presentation. And I know you're probably thinking, oh no, 5 more paragraphs. But the first week, week 22, you just write the 3 paragraphs 2, 3, and 4, going over what we've already done in the past. And then for week 23, you would add the intro and the conclusion. All right? So let's go through and specifically talk about what this is going to look like in the critique. In the introduction, what you're going to do is, first of all, like we did with our Faces of History introduction, you're going to grab your reader's attention. Okay? And maybe you give a quote, or you give an instance from the story, something that really would draw the reader into wanting to read it, or maybe something that you didn't like about it, or however you want to grab your reader's attention. In the story that you're going to do in IEW, it's a little story about Genghis Khan and his hawk. And the twins and I started it this last week. Something you could do, have you ever been really, really thirsty? Okay? Just draw them in somehow to pull them in to want to read your critique. And then you're going to give the title of your story, and again, I'm talking about story, but you could write a critique on a poem, a song, a movie, different forms of entertainment. Then you're going to give the author of the story or whatever you're critiquing. And then you're going to give a little bit of information about what type of a story or whatever it is that you're critiquing. And again, I will give you on page 68 in your SRP. Every family should have their student resource packet. If you look at page 68, we have a great thesaurus for different words that they could use in actually all of these paragraphs. But if you look in that first one, it says introduction. Is their story a tale? Is it a saga? Is it a narrative? Is it a mystery? What is it? Is it a comedy? What is it? And then what type? Is it sad? Is it with nature? Is it science fiction? Is it historical? Is it a fairy tale? Is it descriptive? Just different words that they can use in this introduction. And it helps them learn these words that they'll need to know later on. All right, so that's their introduction. Again, it's kind of informative. It's just you're grabbing their attention, and then you're telling the title, the author, and what type of a story or whatever it is. All right. Then we're going to go into the second, third, and fourth paragraph. And this should look familiar to you because the second, third, and fourth paragraphs are what we called back in Unit 3, the story sequence chart. Okay, so I hope these look familiar to you. I'll just go through them very quickly. The first paragraph for that, which will be your second paragraph in your critique, the first thing that you're going to do is give the main characters in your story. Okay, you're going to give who they are, maybe a little bit about them, not too much information. And then you're going to tell us, where does the story take place? When does the story take place? Just tell us about the setting, all right? Draw the reader into the situation of the story, okay? Then in our next paragraph, you're going to give us the conflict. Every story has a conflict. I know I've always joked, even the Hallmark movies that you watch, there's always a conflict. It's normally the same one in those, but there's a conflict. We've actually ventured out to Hallmark movies and mysteries in our home now. They're free right now, and so we're finding more conflict, and we're actually thinking that Hallmark can write something a little deeper than its normal movie, and we're enjoying that in our home. But there's more conflict, it's deeper. But anything that you read, any good thing that you read or watch, you've got to have a conflict. So what is the problem? Okay, what's the problem in this story? It needs a solving, and what is the plan? Okay, what's the plot? All right, they're going to give that, and in the next paragraph, they're going to tell us what was the turning point of the story. how was the problem solved? Okay. Somehow Genghis Khan's thirst is going to be solved, but there's more to it, all right, in the lessons that we're going to be doing for week 22 and 23. So hopefully that brings back a little bit from Unit 3. We did these 3 paragraphs with our story sequence charts when we were retelling stories from Unit 3. And then our last paragraph in our critique, and this is where it gets a little bit more personal for the student. And here again, let them write their conclusion how they want. I do have one qualification for that when we get to the end. Did they like the story? Did they dislike the story? Why? What caused them to like or dislike the story? What were the messages? You might say the moral of the story. What's the theme of the story? Okay, they can tell that. What lessons can be learned from this story? The Genghis Khan and the hawk is actually a very sad turn of events. I was not expecting that until as we were doing it, and then bam, we were like, oh, and it drew the twins in to want to do it all the way, which I was very excited about. And then the last thing about the conclusion, we do not want to use the word I. Just like with their Faces of History paper, okay, not the monologue that they're going to present on Friday, but in their paper, they didn't want to use I. You don't want to say how I feel, I liked or disliked. You want to come across telling it, but not making it that you did it. And this is really good for them to learn this, to be able to say something without saying, I think, or I feel. It's better for them to be descriptive and show it through what they write. It's a lot deeper thinking and writing, and it's really good for them. So there are some examples in the book, in your writing book, medieval writing book, about that, because I know that can be a little bit, that sounds difficult, but you can keep it simple for them, especially on this first one, especially if they're 2 or 1. Keep it very simple. And if you feel like this literature, this Genghis Khan excerpt is too difficult, you could take a fable or something even smaller and do that first if you want. But really, this isn't that hard. I feel like it should be pretty easy for everyone, all right? So that is a formal critique, and that is what they're going to do. They can use this format for most any formal critiques. By the way, Mr. Pudwal does talk about in his video about different kinds of critiques for nonfiction, fiction, history, all kinds of different ones that you might want to look about as your child gets older, if they're in 2 or 3. But I think this is a beautiful way for a child to retell the story, tell the what they got from it, the important messages and themes that come from the story, and then how they can apply them. And I think that that's really good. So let me explain to you just very quickly. So for week 22, which would be this week, you're going to do lesson 28. And what you're doing is you're doing those 3 middle paragraphs, paragraph 2, paragraph 3, and paragraph 4, using your story of Genghis Khan and the hawk and his hawk, okay? And all you're going to do is they're going to do their characters and setting, the conflict or the problem, and then the climax and resolution. That's for week 22. And you can break it down, maybe read it one day and then just do the characters and setting. And then another day, maybe do the keyword outline for the conflict, problem, and the climax and resolution. And then just go back and rewrite it. So that's for week 22. And then on week 23, you're going to go to lesson 29. And that is writing the introduction and the conclusion for Genghis Khan and his hawk. So you're just finishing up the critique with the first paragraph and the last paragraph, okay? They give you some helps, some ways that they start with the conclusion. Mr. Pudwa always wants us to do that. And they give some examples. So instead of saying, I or my. You might say Genghis Khan and his hawk is a blank story that teaches blank. That way they don't say, I think that Genghis Khan. It's just a way that they can say it without using I. They give you some examples and some ways to think of how to do that. So you're going to do the conclusion and the introduction, okay? There is and then you can put all 5 of those paragraphs together and you will have your critique, formal critique for Genghis Khan and his hawk. You have your checklist on page 244 once the 2 weeks are finished and they have written their critique. Again, you actually have a lot more time than that if you want to take 4 weeks and do it really well, or however you want to do that. We won't be meeting again, so you have a lot of time. I do recommend, as I said in the beginning, that you use these formal critiques for ways for them to write book reports this summer, if you would like to continue with that. I found that the female child enjoyed writing this a lot more now than we did when we did Unit 3, as far as the story sequence chart and retelling the story. So last time that was switched when we did Unit 3. And so I would just have fun with it. If they enjoy it, let them keep doing it, and maybe once a month they write a critique on something they read this summer. I had said that in the past a lot, and we hadn't always done that, but I think we're going to try to do that through the summer. So let's just recap with IEW, all right? Weeks 22 is lesson 28 in your IEW book. Week 23 is lesson 29. In those 2 weeks, you will finish Genghis Khan and his hawk. Week 24 was our celebration, and obviously we won't be meeting that day. Hopefully this summer we can get together. A few things, just don't forget their vocabulary words in the back of their book are still so helpful. There is one more week of vocabulary words for week 22 this week using lesson 28. So I would recommend you look at those. We found with our Faces of History paper several times, we just opened up the vocabulary in the back of this book and we just looked for good words to use in our Faces of History paper. So don't forget about your vocabulary words. Don't forget about those beautiful dress-ups on your checklist. You're going to have your ly adverb, your who, which clause, your strong verb, your quality adjective, your ww.asia.b clause, and then all those banned words, keep away from those. And then the sentence openers, we have accomplished all of them. The subject, the preposition, the ly word, the ing, the clausal, and then the very short sentence. And this critique would be a great place to put some of their decorations. Alliteration would be fun in a critique. Just different things that they can add to make this fun for them. If you guys have any questions about writing a critique or anything, again, feel free to ask Miss Sarah, Miss Tammy, or myself. And I hope that you have a great time with Unit 9. We have accomplished all of the units, and for you that are in Tour 2 or Tour 1 or Tour 2, or who will be taking this again next year, you'll get to do it all again. So even though it's been a little different here at the end, just remember that we will all be doing this again, unless your child's going on a challenge, but it'll be even better next year, I promise. So thank you for listening, and I hope this helps with Unit 9.